It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody! It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Schick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
And Les Webster.
Hello, all.
How are y'all doing?
I made it.
Doing well.
Well, I hope everybody's doing okay out there. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
I made it. This has been a rough week, so I have done nothing fun. I have a decent-sized stack of trades I'd love to dive into, but I haven't had the opportunity yet. I'm also still reading that Monty Python book, but only a few pages at a time these days. But I don't really have much today.
All right, that's okay. Les?
We were out at the racetrack this weekend. Some friends came into town. My godson and the husband of my goddaughter were in town to race. They got to get behind the wheel of some NASCAR vehicles, and with professional drivers alongside them, they took about 10 laps around the track. Of course, the two of them both said, "We're coming back, but we want to get 20 laps or sign up for more if they can, I'm sure." Most everybody in the group went in a vehicle at one point. I was one of those that did not, but I just couldn't see me trying to get into a race vehicle or the secondary vehicle they had that was so low to the ground that I knew that my butt would be scraping by the time we got around the track. But we had a good time.
They didn't have a NASCAR vehicle in your size?
No, sir. Those guys are small.
Yeah. There's a reason for that. They're light.
Exactly.
Cool. Sounds like fun, though.
Yeah. Okay. I revisited an old movie I hadn't seen in I don't know how long. And I remember enjoying it back in the day, but I don't know, I guess seeing it again after some time and kind of with new eyes kind of got me thinking in a different point of view, and it may be not in this particular case, but this may be something we might want to do for a future episode. But it was the Towering Inferno, starring Steve McQueen and Paul Newman, and maybe we ought to do an episode talking about disaster movies just for fun. But what I was kind of getting at was, I don't know why it didn't dawn on me when I watched it all those years ago, but for some it happened this particular time. And for those who have not seen the movie or are not aware, or it's been forever since you have seen it, Paul Newman is the architect who designed the world's tallest building. It was going to have restaurants and apartment complexes and all that. But the owner and the son-in-law, who were played by William Holden and Richard Chamberlain, kind of cut corners during construction, especially on the wiring. So that's hence the setup for the actual Inferno. But Steve McQueen played a fireman. And I'm sitting halfway through this, it's like, why is it always when something really bad something turns to the worse during this fire, they turn to Steve McQueen like he's the only one that could be able to do it. Throughout the entire film, I was just like, oh God.
It's like he's the star or something.
Yeah, I know that was the reason why, but it's just...
It's kind of clumsy storytelling, really.
Yeah, it is, because, he narrowed, you got to do this, so he goes and does that, and then comes back, and of course he's black from the soot, and he's out of breath, and he's really wanting to take a break, but this has happened, and we got to do something about that, and then so of course there he goes again, and it's just, this is like I think it's like a 2.5-hour movie, and he's doing it through most of this, and just like, wow, that's it was pretty bad. But
that was a pretty big hit too in the box office.
Yes, it was, and it was funny because I started watching it, and I'm kind of zoning out on the credits, and I'm just listening to the music. I'm like, God, that sounds like John Williams, something John Williams would do. And sure enough, just as soon as I say that, up pops his name. Yeah, I'm like, okay, that I didn't pay attention to that before either. But
he had a career before Star Wars.
well, I knew that. That was a joke on Mystery Science Theater 3000 when they were watching the movie Daddy-O, which was a 50s drug running. It was a drug running, and the guy the lead actor who had to do the running of drugs was also a lead singer. It was like a singer and that kind of thing. But the music was by, at the time, Johnny Williams. Wow. And I remember Servo making a comment that says, before he heard Stravinsky.
Oh man!
Because it was a jazz soundtrack. It was pretty good too. That was about the only thing that was good about that film was the music.
That I can believe.
But
and that you've only seen it thanks to Mystery Science Theater 3000 probably was a good hint to that.
Yeah. So it was an all-star cast from back in the day, and it's a nice melodramatic popcorn film, and a lot of them are, and they still are when they do those. But it was kind of fun to revisit that. I also had picked up a trade to read. It's the Complete Jim Starlin Warlock, and such a great read. I love when Jim Starlin. This was awesome. Period of cosmic space opera. This is the man who created Thanos, and we're gonna see some of this stuff in the upcoming movies. So we're gonna see some form of it. Warlock's already been hinted at, and of course we already know Thanos is around. So it was kind of nice to kind of go back and see where all that came from.
Cool.
But yeah, we're gonna have to, at some point we may want to get into disaster movies just for the shits and giggles.
I'm rubbing my hands over this one, right?
Mm-hmm. So, before we get into this week's topics, I want to take a couple of moments to thank our sponsors for their support. First off, I want to thank Make Mine Indie, the digital catalog for print digital web comics that are not exactly available from Diamond Distribution. The summer catalog should be out. Mm-hmm. Supposed to drop the 21st. I have not checked into that. I guess I'm going to have to. But it should be out right now. So if you know what, let me check the website real quick, and you could check it out as well. You go to www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net and do exactly what I'm doing right now, which is clicking on the sponsors tab, And the first thing you will see is the Make My Indie logo and a link to where you can download a free copy, either a CBZ file or a PDF file. And yes, matter of fact, the summer catalog is out right now. So go ahead and download it and check out. There will be reviews, interviews, previews for all sorts of publishers. Most of them, the books will be available on their website. So go check that out and do a shout out to them from us. It would be awesome. I also want to thank Things from Another World for sponsoring the fellowship. They got some great deals going on right now. Through July 6th, you can get up to 30% off on select Wonder Woman products. And a new deal just came down that's good through July 16th. Almost 50% off on certain Game of Thrones products. So you ought to go check those out. In addition to their evergreen deals, such as 40% off on comics, statues, toys, and merchandise, 30% off select pre-order manga titles, and 50% off Nick and Dent comics. So while you're on our sponsors page, just scroll down to the bottom. You'll see information for Things from Another World. Just click on one of those images. That lets them know that we sent you their way, and take advantage of some of these great deals. Alrighty. This was a topic we were going to get into a couple weeks back, and it just didn't work it out. So we are planning on doing it today. Just kind of a fun little discussion. Nothing really too thought-provoking or anything, but just kind of wondered if there's a particular ritual you have in regards to reading. Is there a certain place? Is there a certain snack or drink, that kind of thing? And I just thought, we're all creature of habits. When we want to do something, there's usually some kind of, a certain way we'll go about doing it, that kind of thing. So I just kind of thought I'd throw it out there and kind of discuss what kind of rituals, or not necessarily rituals as in rituals, but just kind of routines. No sacrifices to read comics, but just what we do when we kind of get to that time we want to sit down and read some comics. So, who would like to go first?
I am reminded of a scene near the end of Major League.
Yep.
Where the one guy wanted to sacrifice a live chicken in the clubhouse before a playoff game.
Right.
Just random thing jumped in my head.
Mm-hmm. Let's not start a holy war, Harris.
That was Dennis Haysbert.
Yes, it was.
Yep.
It absolutely was. And that was a very young Wesley Snipes, too.
Yep.
Yes.
A very young and not quite so bulked up Wesley Snipes.
Yep. So who'd like to go first?
Yeah, we've stalled long enough, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, see, this is. I thought this was an interesting topic because I kind of have several different ways of going about it depending on what I'm reading. I guess what I read the most probably is essentially online comics, or downloaded digital comics, because not surprisingly, we get review copies of a lot of stuff, and so I end up reading quite a few of those in order to decide which ones I'm going to review. And for the most part, that happens. I usually download stuff on like Sunday night, and other stuff trickles in like Monday and Tuesday that I download. But I'll download stuff and kind of winnow out what I need to read for reviews. And then Monday night, after the kid goes to bed, I plop down with my laptop, usually in the study. I have a recliner in here, and just start busting through them. I usually skim through pretty quickly the first time, just to kind of I'm just trying to get a sense of how it looks and how quickly I can pick up the story. But so I'll end up reading anywhere from like 3 to 7 or 8 books in a relatively short amount of time on a Monday night to figure out what I'm going to review.
Right. What about, like, say, your trades?
Yeah, my trades. I actually have my trades in a stack out in the living room next to the love seat.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm reading those, I'm usually sitting right there, just grabbing stuff off the top. And that's mostly true of floppies as well. Usually the floppies go on top of the trade stack, and so I make sure I usually end up reading the floppies before I dive into the next trade, because I'm funny about completion that way. So yeah, like I said, kind of a different place, different mindset. I'm usually reading slower and more for enjoyment at that point, for stuff that I've sprung hard-earned cash for.
Okay. Les?
Well, you guys have really cut me back, because we can't sacrifice anything or tell about that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe for episode 100.
There we go. Yeah, we'll come out. I am prone to grab several issues just from whatever I bought that week and start to read them. I can read most anywhere except when I'm driving.
Oh, good.
Yeah, everybody's happy about that. It's just one of those things that I don't have to have complete silence. I can have background noise, I can have music, I can have the TV going. And most of the time, comics don't necessarily hold me where I can't take in other things going on. It's not a form of multitasking. It's, I guess, just a short attention span at times. So I can read in front of the televised baseball game, or I can read before I go to bed. I can read in the restroom. It just, like I said, it doesn't matter what or where. Now, a lot of times if I grab stuff out of the bag to begin reading, I will make sure that I have something funny in there too. I don't want to be totally dredged down by spandex and capes. Instead, I want to make sure that I can get a chuckle out of something too. So I may read Donald Duck or Uncle Scrooge in that stack also, to make sure that I've got something that will bring a smile. But there's no exact ritual, though. Thank goodness. And like I said, I can read anywhere. I can sit in my car, and I love to sit in the car and read when the rain is falling, because it's just that much more soothing. I don't have the radio on. I don't have the engine running. I'm just sitting in the car, listening to the rain hit the roof and reading. It's calming and something I enjoy.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yep. I have a recliner that I basically do. I do a lot of the work for the website and the podcast and that kind of stuff. That's what, I have a laptop and I'll do all that kind of stuff there. That's as Mike does as well. That's where I kind of do my reading of digital comics. I read a lot of the floppies and trades here. Sometimes I may read some in bed before I go to bed, before I go to sleep. Not like I used to. And I'm not sure why that has changed now that I kind of think about that. But I hadn't thought about sound wise, but I may have the TV on, but it may be on mute, which it might as well just be off just to save electricity. But um, you know, so I basically one spot, but I can read just about anywhere. I mean, I've read up at the store a few times. I don't necessarily go outside and read. Not that I don't have a problem with that. It's just not something I thought about doing. Kind of take advantage of whenever there's some nice weather. I do like that is kind of a neat idea about trying to read while it's raining. That might be an interesting. I'm sure I've read when it's raining, I just hadn't paid attention.
Yeah, see, the background noise thing, it's one of those deals where, I mean, I'm not going to have the TV on when I'm reading, not because it's distracting, just because I don't need it. It's not. Like for example, I'll be sitting there reading while my wife's watching TV, and I mean, I can focus just fine on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
As far as like music goes, I mean, there was a time when I would have been listening to music all the time, so that I would have been listening to music while I was reading comics, but I kind of don't do that anymore. I'm not entirely sure why, but I just don't. I mean,
Yeah, it's just something that just happened.
I still like music just as much as I did. I just don't listen to it as much. Unfortunately, I mostly get tricked into listening to what my kid wants to listen to, which, so maybe that's why. Maybe it's that beaten dog thing. That no, I don't want music. But back in the day, yeah, I would have had music on while I was reading. I also find that like something like music in the background can kind of affect my mood while I'm reading, which can affect how I read stuff. So, I mean, if I'm reading for actual content, then it doesn't make sense because I don't want my mood affected because I want to be affected by the mood of what I'm reading.
Right.
Not what I'm listening to, because they can be drastically different.
Right.
Especially if I'm bouncing back and forth from between comedy and horror and supers and all that stuff. I need to be able to, my brain needs to be able to shift gears like that. So the distraction, it's not a conscious distraction. It's more of a subconscious thing even. And then just, I don't need that. I'm trying to figure out if I think something's good.
Right.
Listening to a bunch of Black Sabbath while I'm doing so may affect my judgment,
No.
Well,
I understand. Yeah.
Listen to Black Sabbath while you're reading Archie. There may be some problems there.
Well, if it's that Archie versus Predator thing, it works out.
Oh yeah, definitely that. that works actually. Yes.
Yeah, shouting "Die Sucker Die" doesn't quite fit though. When you're reading Archie.
I don't know. They've modernized Archie a bit these days. Might not be as weird as it seems.
Given what's been going on recently in the main book, I'm sure someone may be saying that here real soon.
Probably so, yeah.
Do you guys kind of go get a favorite beverage to drink while you're reading, or something like that, or is just, hey, I'm there to read, and I may have water there just because I need water anyway, but
Yeah, all of us plants need water.
Mm.
Not really. I mean, I'm not. Usually, like I said, when I'm reading, it's kind of late in the evening.
Right.
Because, I mean, it's often kind of like when we record. It's often after like 9 o'clock at night. And so, no, I'm kind of full from dinner still, and not too concerned about all that. I'll get up and get a snort of water if I need it, and I just kind of don't think about it. I'm not really a snacker in the evenings either. So.
Right.
I wish I had the kind of time that I could spend doing that sort of thing. That I could sit and read for hours and like actually need to eat and drink in between, but I don't.
I prefer to have something, some sort of beverage with me, whether it be a soda or water, usually water. But a lot of times I'm so lazy I don't even get up to go get something. So I will just sit there with parched throat and fight my way through some comics. And there are some titles that I have to grasp at to try to get through. Others are such easy, quick reads that there's no problem. As far as a snack or something,
yeah,
not really. I'm like Mike. I'm still full from dinner, so food doesn't even cross my mind while I'm reading.
Unless it comes up in the book you're reading, of course.
Yes, if the zombies are eating brains, then yes, I want noodles or something like that.
Nice. I was thinking a bunch of kids. I guess my brain flashed back to Archie. I was thinking a bunch of kids around a diner table eating a pizza or something. But okay, we can go with zombies and brains. No problem.
Okay.
Is there something you prefer, Thomas?
Well, I mean, I might have, it really kind of depends on when I'm reading. Yeah, if it's later in the evening, probably don't want a soda. I may do more water, that kind of thing. But I know when I was younger, I used to really want to have a couple slices of pizza while I'm reading. I obviously couldn't do it all the time, but I don't know. It was just kind of, that was a couple of slices and a nice soda and a dozen or so comics to read, and hey, it's a nice afternoon.
Yeah, see, and you're in the boat where you kind of work the late shift at the shop. So I imagine you're actually reading stuff earlier in the day than Les and I are. So
True.
So eating and drinking is a little more relevant, for lack of a better word, for you.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Or so I imagine. Anyway, I could be wrong.
Yeah. And I'm kind of thinking about, back like during our college days and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I could definitely be reading and having a nice soda at the store as long as I don't spill.
First, yeah, we started talking about snacks. First thing I thought, that little light powdered donuts. I'm like, no, we got to bag and board these things. We can't read that stuff on our fingers.
Right. Yep.
Cheetos and Doritos are out too.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Yep. Cheetos are the bane of comic book readers.
Oh, I love me some Cheetos though. See, and I'm weird because I like the puffy kind. Everybody I know tells me I'm weird because of this. They're like, no, the crunchy ones are the real Cheetos. I'm like, no, you just don't understand. The puffy ones are the best ones. And you get more gunk on your fingers from the puffy ones. And so
yeah, that's what I want.
I have to wash my hands carefully before I move on to comics after eating the puffy Cheetos. By the way, if anybody from Frito-Lay is listening, we would be more than happy to consider sponsorship.
Or the review possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty.
What about before? When you were a kid, what was it like to sit down and read? Was it any different from what you face now?
There was a lot less alcohol back then, but yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking as a kid. Unless you're really into it right back then.
Wow, I didn't think about that. When I was a kid, I was the kind of I used reading as an excuse to hide in my room and not interface with anybody. So yeah, I mean, yeah. So I was usually like laying on the bed reading something, or at times when I'd like have a desk and a chair, I would be sitting at the desk or whatever. And there was, like I said, there was a lot more music involved back then. But yeah, usually I was using reading. I don't know, maybe a little harsh to say I was using reading to avoid people, but harsh and true may not necessarily be different things here.
I don't know if anything was really different back then. I mean, I probably would have spent more time, well, I mean, laying on the bed as a kid reading comics, but then again, I mean, that was, obviously I was a kid. I didn't have a work room or a study or something like that where I could have another room.
I understand. No place to hide away. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of just read wherever. I mean, I could have been in a living room while the parents were watching TV or something. Yeah. I mean, both were readers, big time readers. I mean, I got the love of comics from my dad and his brother. It's because of him that I knew of comics, and that's where my love of sci-fi came from too. Sci-fi fantasy. Usually, what we would do is, I would get a stack of comics, and then I would read them, and then I would pass them on to him, and he would read them, or maybe vice versa, which I thought was just kind of cool. I'm sure that may be happening a little bit more now than it was during when I was a kid.
Yeah, maybe the genre lines are a little blurrier now, so I can see that. But
well, not only that, but just kids growing up reading comics and then turn around and and passing on that love to their kids. So yeah, I don't think that was a thing back when you and I were Alex's age or younger. I don't think that was definitely a case where I think it's more likely now. I mean, I see it a lot at the store. I see dads bringing their sons in the first time they've ever been in a comic store, and he says, "I want them to see what a comic store was like," and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because I mean, there weren't a lot of comics. Well, there weren't a lot of comics in our house when I was a kid, so.
Right.
I mean, most of my reading was I was checking books out of the library like a madman.
Right.
And yeah, comics. I didn't get stumbled into comics until quite a bit later.
Yeah, I don't remember. No, I don't want to make it sound like a blanket statement. I just don't remember a lot of our contemporaries back during that time of having dads that would much less read anything, but especially comics. So.
Mm-hmm.
I had a brother and two sisters, and I was the reader, the strong reader of the group. Especially if you tossed a comic book in a ring of the four of us, I would be the one to take it and read it. And it wasn't because I was the biggest of the group, because I wasn't at that time. But I've said it before, I essentially learned to read by comics. By the time I got to grade school, I was handling a lot of the primers that they had. As a kid, my brother and I would read comics. The girls who were older had no desire to read them. my brother and I would read them. It was a ritual for us to pass them around to kids in the block. You would get your comics back, but everybody got to read the comics. And usually with like 4 or 5 kids on the block, we would have enough that it could occupy a day for us. Because as kids then, of course, you turn around and you play the parts. You say, I'm going to be this person, and you can be the villain and just almost follow the scripts of the comics. And I don't know if you guys did that or not, if you passed around your comics. Granted, they weren't in best shape. They would not get you a 6 or a 5.5 in today's grading. But you got the enjoyment of them.
They were well loved.
They were well loved, well read. A lot of them were rolled up and used to hit people. So, yeah.
I didn't. I didn't really have too many. Now that I think about it, I don't think I had too many friends that read comics. Period. I remember in middle school, I had a science teacher that on days that whether we were having a test or he was showing a film, I brought comics. I had them in one of those old folders, and I brought them up, and he just came by my desk, and I handed it to him, and he went to the back of the room and he just read comics while we were taking the test where we were watching the film. And then he would bring them back to me by the time class was over.
You were his connection.
Yeah.
That's
first one's fruit.
And his favorite character was Silver Surfer. So the last day of school, I had picked up a copy of Silver Surfer, and I gave it to him as a gift.
That's cool.
Thus securing your A for the class.
Yes, exactly. Anyway.
No, we do not condone bribing teachers for grades.
How's that working out? How's that working for Alex?
I'm trying to find a bribable teacher, but you know, they're hard. They're like honorable people and stuff. It's very frustrating.
What good are they?
So, Les, did you read the entire Gambit? I mean, or did you mainly stick with the heroes, or did you venture out to the other genres as a kid?
Well, as a kid, there wasn't a lot to go with. Marvel hadn't appeared. There was no Spider-Man. There was no Fantastic Four.
Just cave paintings, really.
Yeah. And we would make up our own dialogue. It was like our MST3K, because we would walk by them fast to make them look like motion pictures.
Teenage caveman, yeah.
You had Batman, Superman. You had Wonder Woman. You had the Flash.
Yeah, the cops.
Yeah. I haven't seen my picture at the post office yet. You have, when I was growing up, of course, in the Silver Age, you had the introduction of the Flash, the introduction of Atom, Green Lantern, and so many others. Then, at that time, you read what you could. And you had superheroes, you had some of the EC stuff kind of filtering over. You had romance comics, which I stayed away from, like the plague. You know what? 8 years old, that's not what's crossing your mind. You had Archie. So I read almost what was on the spinner. I talked about it before, going down to the local drugstore and sitting on the footrest at the counter right by the comics and sit there and read. Finish one up, put it back, start another one. And the folks there didn't mind. That was a big difference from today when some people come into a store and think it's a library, so they just grab a copy and sit down and start reading. Back then, it wasn't really shunned. It was 10 cents a copy, so it wasn't like it was the end of the world if the comics were read. And those comics, too, were read pretty heavily. I was not the only one that would sit and read those. It wasn't like we would have a bunch of kids sitting there. The most I can remember is 3. My brother and I were 2 of them. So back then, you read what was available.
You'll read it and you'll like it.
Yes, that's it. And we did, because it was stuff that appealed to us.
Well, and you still are.
True. If the shop had a spinner that I could sit and just read, that'd be great.
Okay. Very cool.
Well, like I said, Marvel was still 4 to 5 years away.
I understand, but I mean, I was just kind of curious if you got into the westerns and the horror and some of the other. I know there wasn't a lot of fantasy stuff back then, but yeah, you had the romance and you had some of the stuff licensed from the TV show, especially from what was it, Dell doing that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. A lot of Dell. A lot of there were westerns, and I did read like Tomahawk by DC. You know, if there was a Gene Autry or a Roy Rogers, I might pick it up and read. But it wasn't a regular for me.
Yeah, it's interesting that we've kind of come full circle in that we are now back in an age where comics spread across a lot more genres than they had for a long time. It's as if they kind of narrowed it down, and with I guess the whole superhero thing kind of took over comics for a few decades there, and now we're getting to where there's stuff that's popular that's not necessarily supers.
Yep.
Which is kind of nice, really.
You see a lot more of that kind of variety with the more independents. I mean, Marvel and DC are sticking supers. They'll venture out a little bit, but
well, yeah, but they're also pinning other labels on their the ones that vary from the supers. They're pinning. They're putting those under different banners.
Right.
A lot of times.
But with like Image, Dark Horse, and some of the smaller publishers, definitely they don't really do a lot of the cape and cowl stuff. It's more going to be the fantasy or true crime or horror.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Because they know better than to try to compete with the big 2 in terms of supers. I mean, that's all they do. I mean, they're not gonna win that fight. That's not to say they're not gonna put out really good comics. It's just
and that's what I was about to say. I wouldn't discourage them from doing that. Yeah, they're facing an uphill battle, but if they've got a good story that they want to tell, then by all means tell it.
Well, and they do.
And they do.
And it usually works out really well for them. But yeah, they're not outselling Batman.
Well,
and the deal is, I don't think it's important to outsell Batman. I mean, they're gonna sell what they want to sell and what they need to sell, and people are gonna enjoy it. That's really all that matters, you know.
Well, if a publisher's getting into the business to try to outsell those two, then they might as well just give up.
Exactly.
If they're getting in because they have a passion to create these stories and they have stories they want to tell, then it may take some time, but they will find the audience and they'll do well.
Yep.
Very true. But don't try to establish a universe, like Mike says, to compete with the big two. Because we've seen so many fall to the wayside.
Yep. Yeah, that indie comics has gone the route of, well, let's find something else to let's find other stories to tell, is working out great for them.
Yep.
I mean, indie comics some of the best-selling comics out there right now are indie comics, and some of the most popular properties are coming out of not Marvel and DC. And like I've said it before, I mean, we're kind of in a golden age of comics. There's more accessibility now. There's more variety now. There's more quality, really.
Especially in the storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone back. I've got the first two omnibuses of the Justice League, and I look now and I go, these stories are horrible. But as a kid, boy, I was right there in front going, this is the best stuff ever. A lot of holes in their stories then, but they were written for my age group.
Right.
They were not trying to be the elite. They were not trying to write for at that time, the 25-year-olds.
Yeah, they didn't have Hemingway on staff.
No.
So they were, I mean, it was with that, at that point, you're buying the whole experience, the whole package, more than just the story. And so you can, I mean, you're more interested in getting product out there on the shelf for kids like that to buy than you're not going to, I mean, like now you complain a lot, and a lot of people do, about certain indie publishers and how they have delays a lot of times. Well, that's because they have a story that they want to tell and they're trying to get it right a lot of times. I mean, sometimes it's like weird shipping and distribution BS, but most of it is they're trying to get the thing the way they want it, whereas the bigger companies are just trying to get a damn book out every month. And I don't want to say they don't care about quality, because they do, but the deadline is more important to them than it is to some of the others. And so, yeah, I mean, something sometimes gets sacrificed, and sometimes that's the story. Sometimes it's the quality of the art, and sometimes it's other stuff. But yeah, so when you're an 8-year-old kid picking up Justice League for the first time, that's a package deal. That's just, you're buying the coolness of it.
Yeah.
More than you're buying the story, because you're 8. You don't know what the hell the story is.
Yeah, you don't even know that they come out several times a year. Oh, you mean Justice League comes out that many times?
Yeah, there's going to be another one next month? That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. But of course, back then too, Mike, you may have 8 issues a year instead of 12.
Mm-hmm.
So you just kind of, at that age, you kind of watch the stands to see what comes in and see what appeals to you and what you can try to remember that you bought last. Oh, Justice League, did I buy this last month? No, this is a new issue. I need it.
Mm-hmm. Capitalism at its finest.
And they did offer subscriptions. For like $10, you could buy a year subscription to a title.
And they were mailed to your house.
And they were mailed to your house. No telling what the condition was, but they were mailed to your house.
$10 a year for 12 10-cent comic books? Y'all got screwed, man.
Yeah, I remember doing the subscriptions and having the stuff mailed to the house. It was so cool to check the mail every day, and then you open up the mailbox and you see this comic that's wrapped in a brown sleeve. And you go, oh, good, such something, whatever book it was, it's here. And you just pull it out, and there it is. Run in and start reading right then. I remember doing that for, there was 2 or 3 books that I did that for. I definitely did it for Brave and Bold because I remember about the time that I signed up for it was the time, unless you may remember this, where they would put a hidden image in the book that gave you a clue of who the guest star was going to be for the next issue. You remember that?
Yeah. Yes, they had ways of putting little secrets in the issues. And it was kind of fun to try to track it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could be sitting there and all of a sudden you see like a Flash symbol or something like that. You go, oh, Flash is going to be next issue. That kind of stuff was cool.
Yep.
I think we talked about it before about going to the Five and Dime, which I don't know how many our audience knows what a Five and Dime is, and picking up a 2 or 3 pack, which were these, and they're back to a degree. I've been told that some of those are being offered at, say, Walmart, and I think maybe Target's. Not that I'm trying to plug them or anything, but these are three comics that are put together in a package and for a kind of reduced price, and they happen to be older books. And it was always cool to go in and just go through the different ones to see which one you wanted, and especially I hadn't seen the packaging for the new stuff, but back in the old days, it was just basically this little, what kind of material would you call that, Les? That was in, but it was flimsy enough that you can actually part between the top comic and then the one that's in the middle, so you can see what the middle comic was, and go, okay, this is the one I want.
True. Yeah. Real bad plastic.
Yeah.
Almost like Viz Queen that they would pack those in. And you were trying to fight to see what the middle comic was.
Right.
And rarely would you get 3 issues of the same story.
Oh, no, it was always mixed up. There may be one that's, like, say, a Superman, and then a Justice League, and then like a Green a Flash or something like that. Yeah, it was never 3 of the same one character or that kind of thing. And there was usually one that's primarily DC, one that's primarily Marvel, one maybe just other. It was usually like Dell or a combination of Dell and Charlton and that kind of thing. And then I don't remember if there was one where they were all mixed up. Do you remember that, Les?
I don't remember getting a Dell, a Whitman, and a DC together. No. Okay. They're usually by publisher.
Okay, they were probably that's what I was. I didn't think that was the case, but I couldn't remember. I remember there being the different ones, but they were all the same primary publisher. Those were cool. It was always kind of fun to pick those up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, were you picking them up in terms of being a collector even back then?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, I was picking up to read. I mean, I'm still talking about me picking these up when I was a kid.
Right. When did you start collecting?
I'm not sure exactly when I became more of a collector, and to a degree, I don't consider myself a collector. I mean, I'm collecting them, but
You have a collection, but you're not a collector.
I have a collection, but I'm definitely reading them.
Right.
Definitely reading them, and yeah, I'm keeping them in bags of words after I read them, but yeah, I don't really kind of go out and go, okay, well, here's a book that's going to be a great investment. I'm going to pick that up and then, stack it away, that kind of thing. I'm just a reader that has that very nice and big collection.
Yeah, you just happen to have been reading for a long time, and
Yes.
you have a lot of books stacked up now.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a time for you, Les, that you started collecting?
Probably after I was married. It just, one of those things just struck me. I said, I remember this stuff, kind of think I might want to get back into it. But that's about when I started collecting and gathering up the stuff I had at the folks' house and start putting them away.
Putting them all together and realizing, holy cow, I've got a whole bunch of these.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, just look at my storage room now.
Okay, well, this has been fun talk. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up and move on?
No, not really. I will throw in that. Yeah, I agree. It's interesting to think. It's interesting to sort of step away from the stories and art aspect of it and kind of get on the track of, well, how does this physically work? How do we really do this? It has been interesting to kind of think back about how do I do this, and is there a purpose behind it and all that. So I'm just geeky enough to think that's fun, you know.
Well, I know my wife looks at it and says, what the hell's going on? But
if she ever starts wandering around with a thing of kerosene and a match, then you'll know what's going to happen.
Yeah, then I've got an idea.
Alrighty. So when we come back, we'll have our weekly picks. And we're back. It is time for our weekly picks, and leading off is Les.
Thank you, sir. My first choice is Beautiful Canvas, #1, a crime series from Black Mask Comics. You have Ryan Lindsay, Sammy Cavilla, and Christian Ward as the creators of this. And in this story, you have a hit woman, Lon Easley, that is hired to kill a small child. But this occurs a few days after discovering the pregnancy of her girlfriend. Now, as a result, she is saying that no, she can't do this. She saves the boy and drives away. Now, she, of course, is out some money or she's got the money, but she is going to be hunted for the idea of not pulling off the hit. And she has to now live in 2 different worlds. She's got to be a protector, and she still has to maintain her identity of as a killer. Being a big crime comic enthusiast, I'm looking forward to this one coming out in just a week.
Yeah, this one's definitely intriguing, and Black Mask is putting out some really good stuff. I still think it's under the radar. I know they're doing well because a lot of their stuff is going to second and third printings, but some good stuff.
Yep.
I am next, and for my first choice, I'm going with IDW, and it is the second issue of Star Trek The Next Generation, Mirror Broken. Written by Scott and David Timpton, the Timpton brothers, with art by J.K. Woodard. I thought the first issue was intriguing. The mirror, it seems like writers always want to do something with the mirror universe. And it was brought to my attention when this first came out that Next Generation was the only show that never dealt with the mirror universe, which I thought was kind of interesting, because the fact that all the other shows did an episode or so playing with that playground. So it's a nice setup. So I'm kind of see where we go from this, because if those who've not read the first issue, Picard is still commanding the Stargazer at this point, and it's a vastly different universe as opposed to what we know in the Next Generation. It's basically due to Kirk Prime's influence to the mirror universe of Spock and what happened after that. So I thought it was a very interesting start, and the Scott and David Timpton have done real well with, or I think they've been very successful with the times that they have written the Star Trek characters. And I liked the first issue, so I'm curious to see where we go from there.
I'm interested in this because the fact that you brought up that they had not dealt with this situation before. I have not picked it up yet, but I can see why I might want to.
I wasn't all that impressed with the Free Comic Book Day selection, the story that was kind of offshoot of this. But when I read the first issue, I'm like, okay, I'm intrigued now. I'm intrigued. I want to know more, and I like to see where this goes. So, how about you, Mikey?
All right. My first pick is an Image book. But, yeah, no. This is actually one that I've been hoping for a long time. It's finally coming around. Black Magick number 6. We've finally got a new arc for Black Magick. If you are not familiar, it is written by Greg Rucka, drawn by Nicola Scott. And it is the story of a small-town cop who is also a witch, and there's a lot of fun stuff going on with that. It's one of those things that she doesn't make a big deal out of, but there are some big deals going on around her about it, and so stuff in the first arc, stuff got interesting real quick because it became really difficult to hide the fact right off the bat. She'd been kind of not, like I said, playing it down, not really making a big deal out of it, but that was made difficult. And so now we got a new arc, and this particular issue looks to be delving into her history a little bit, so that ought to be fun.
Well, I know part of the delay was because Nicola was doing the Wonder Woman series, but she's off that now, so I expect there to be a lot more Black Magick books coming out, so which is a good thing.
I'm hoping.
Yep, I'm ready to see this come back myself. Mm-hmm. Les, you're up again.
Okay, let's see. My second choice is Scrimshaw number 1, written by Eric Borden, art by Dave Mims. This comes from Alterna Comics, the company that is printing on newsprint, so it's a very low price item. In this series, the ruthless corporations have taken over the governments of the world. This is due to the war-ravaged situation that the planet sits in. Out of this, you come with Captain Hans Tanaka and the crew of the Runaway Horse, who now have been branded as pirates. So now the pirates are in this storyline are going to be the good guys. I've been impressed with Alterna's output so far, and I'm looking forward to see what Scrimshaw does and how it carries itself, because so far Alterna has stayed away from trying to be a universe type comic production company, and just gives you individual stories. They've all been good so far. Let's hope that this carries on.
Yep. They're putting out some good stuff.
Yep.
And I have to say, when you started talking about like shared universe things, the what popped into my head was the crossover with the Chair and Lilith Dark. I just couldn't. That just nearly shut my brain off.
Yeah, that would do it right there.
That just nearly shut my brain off.
Adam Rack and Trespasser, maybe.
I'm happy the fact that it's been the books have been so well received and are doing well. So that's awesome to hear.
Yep.
Here.
Alrighty, I am up next, and my second choice is Buffy High School Years Parental Parasite. This is a trade. I believe it's just an original graphic novel from Dark Horse Comics, written by Kel McDonald with art by Yixin Lee and covered by Scott Fisher. The premise of this one is Buffy has to deal with her mom being under the control of a childlike demon that craves motherly care. So I love the premise of this book. I've always enjoyed the high school years. I seem to enjoy those better than I did her very short-term college career and then being out in the real world. So, I mean, even in the book, the original comics that Dark Horse put out when the show was on, and it was her in high school, I think I don't know, I just enjoyed those stories more, and this seems to harken back to those days, not just because she's back in high school, but just kind of the premise and all that. And plus, we get to see Joyce again. Hey. Yay. Alrighty, Mikey, you're up again.
I'm up again, and it's kind of funny. I've got a Black Mask title. Because I agree with Les, and they're putting out some really good books lately. I'm going with No Angel, number 4. This, I believe, is the end of this story. Hopefully, just the end of the arc. I don't know. I would like to see this keep going. It is the story of an FBI agent who goes back home to her small town on the death of her father to discover some very interesting things about her father that she had no idea about, including the fact that she has a half-sister who I'm not going to spoil anything about because you really should check out this story. It's really cool. And like I said, it seems like this is the end of the arc, so good time to go back and find the others. Pick it all up at once.
And who's writing the book?
The book is written, it is at least created, I do not know who actually has all of the writing credits, by Eric and Adrian Palicki. Some of you comic book geeks may recognize the name Adrian Palicki. She was Mockingbird on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And so she and her brother are working together on this book.
And for about 5 seconds, she was Wonder Woman.
For about 5 seconds, and a lot of people kind of deny that ever happened for some reason. I don't quite get why, but I thought it could have worked.
Yeah, this has been a very intriguing book. And yeah, I hope this is not the end of... Hopefully there's more after this, but I guess we'll see.
Yep.
So I believe we all have honorable mentions. Am I mistaken?
I think you're right. I think we do have all have all. Yeah.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
I
that.
that thing. What you said. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Les. You go off. You go first.
Okay, thanks. My honorable mention is a book that I touted once before. It's called Dark Knight, A True Batman Story by Paul Dini with art by Riley Rossmo. This one is now in trade paperback, and I recommend it. It is nonfiction, yet it is the story of Paul Dini and how it relates to Batman. Paul Dini was one of the big contributors for the Batman animated series and its subsequent changes and variations. He was also tied in with the Superman animated. In this story, he tells about his incident of being mugged with the art by Rossmo, which is phenomenal. It is a story that is touching, but it is uplifting because you see how Denny climbs above the problem that he faced and essentially defeated it. I do recommend it. It is a nonfiction book, but it is the story told in graphic novel form. It's well worth the time. It is a mature title, but I think anybody that reads it will thoroughly enjoy it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's in. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
I'm looking forward to this one too.
Yeah, I'm glad it's actually in paperback form now. I'm up next, and my honorable mention comes from Marvel Comics. It is the Fantastic Four Epic Collection Master Plan of Doctor Doom. Dun, dun, dun. This collects issues 19 through 32 and annuals 1 and 2 of the original run from the 60s. It includes not only battling Doctor Doom, but Submariner, X-Men, and a lot of good stuff. I'm just been really in a nostalgic take recently, especially missing the Fantastic Four. I think I've mentioned that a couple times in prior episodes.
Yeah, once or twice.
Once or twice, and it's funny that we got a teaser recently, not necessarily a Fantastic Four comeback, but maybe a Marvel 2-in-1, which would be cool as well, because I enjoyed that series as well. And for those who are not familiar with that book, that was a team-up book that featured Thing and the Thing from the Fantastic Four. In every issue, he had a guest star. He kind of team up with that person for that issue, and then next month it would be somebody else. So at least we may be getting that. So
Cool. It's a start.
It's a start. Alrighty, Mikey.
All right. My honorable mention is an IDW book. It is Cull Eternal #1. If you're not familiar with Cull, he is a Robert E. Howard original character, along the lines of Conan, but not exactly the same. Cull was different. I always found Cull interesting most of the time, and it looks like now we're going to get a little bit of a modernized take on it. So I think that I'm intrigued. Sounds interesting to me.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
I think so too. That was one that I mulled over about choosing too.
Yep, be fun to see how they handle it.
Yep.
Certainly an interesting cover on this puppy.
Oh yeah. Alrighty then. Any special announcements or mentions this week?
Nothing springs to mind.
Okay. So no special shout outs. So let's do our regular ones. First off, want to say thank you to Manny the Martyr for the music for our little podcast. Great group of guys. Awesome musicians. You should check them out. We'll have a link to them on our show notes, and also if you just go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and click on our podcast page, you'll see their logo, and you can just click on that, and I'll take you to their page and check out their music. Thank you guys very, very much. Also want to shout out to the incredible men and women, the awesome podcast family on Twitter known as Towering Family. They've been so kind to spread the word of the fellowship, and Mikey and I have been doing our darnest to return that love. Thank you guys. If you're looking for any kind of podcast, just whatever kind of podcast you can think of, if you're looking for one, go to Twitter and do a search, #PodernFamily, that's one word, and more than likely you'll find it, and I'm sure you will not regret your decision. Thank you guys very, very much for your support. And finally, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading this episode and listening. Thank you for checking out our previous episodes. We always value your feedback. If you have any comments, suggestions, questions, anything, please let us know. We're always willing to listen. There are several ways you can contact us. You can shoot us an email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website, click on the About Us tab, and there's a form there that you can fill out. You can contact us through social media and follow us there as well. We are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks, that's one whole word. We are on Twitter, @FellowshipGeeks. Feel free to like us and follow us on those pages. And if you want to shoot us a message or send us something, please do. Be much appreciated. Mikey has his own personal Twitter account, @MikeyGeek. I have one as well, @TomTCGeek. Feel free to follow us there and say hi if you'd like, and we'll respond in kind. Wherever you download this episode or other episodes, whether it's through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or you listen to us on YouTube, please rate us, whether it's the star system, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. Please do so, and if you have an extra couple of minutes, a review would be awesome as well. Obviously, the question of the week is, do you have a particular routine when you read your comics, whether it be digital or paper?
Sounds good to me.
Also, this past week I put it out, and Mikey and I will start pushing it. We are accepting questions for a future Q&A episode, so if you have a question you would love for us to answer on a future podcast, please send it to us by the different ways that I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago. And if we use it, we will obviously give you credit and a shout out to you for offering the question. So please, if you have a question, send it our way.
Mm-hmm.
Any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, just thanks, everybody.
I've got nothing extra. Just thank you very much, folks.
Thank you, everybody, for your listening and for your support. It's much appreciated. Love you guys. Until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks. and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,